Imagine the 1980s. Big hair, outrageous styles, and the beginnings of the model office worker. You can't help but thinking of large computers, pages, and big phones with batteries that you have to quite literally carry around like a handbag. And in the 1980s, there was only one way to travel across country: the Intercity 125. Sadly, after over 40 years of service, the 125s are being phased off our networks in favour for other models. But there is one 125 that has a unique place on the network, and its job is equally as unique. For obvious reasons, the year 2000 was a big year. The UK network was being overseen by the company Railtrack, which were a group of companies that inherited the job of looking after the network after the privatisation and death of British Rail. It did not have the best start. The incidents at Southall and Ladbroke Grove had caused people to question whether putting the network into private hands was a good idea. On the 17th of October, the Great North Eastern Railway Intercity 225 had set off from London bound for Leeds. It was a run-of-the-mill day and nothing was untoward. The driver was well experienced and had done the run countless times. His co-driver was an apprentice learning the ropes. It was decided that, considering the run was nothing special, the young trainee would take the driver's seat under strict supervision. The train was travelling well at an average speed of 115 miles per hour, but as they were passing Hatfield, just 10 minutes after they set off, there was a loud bang and the train derailed. The first two coaches and the power car remained upright, but the other 8 vehicles lay strewn across the track, some completely on its side. Scores of people were injured and 4 passengers in the buffet car were killed. After the confusion and the shock of the accident was diminishing and the coaches were cleared, people were demanding answers. How is it that an engine would suddenly derail? The engine was checked but was in perfect working order, and the drivers were entirely blameless. The answer was found on the very track. Just north of the incident, the track lay broken and shattered in over 300 pieces across a 35-metre span. The track was then intact, but another fragmented rail was found nearby. This one was over 50 metres long. An independent investigation board was set up to investigate why the rails had cracked so badly, and the findings were damning. Rails on a railway track are subject to a condition called metal fatigue, thanks to the many factors, including the weight of the engine, expansion joints between rails, and the engine's wheels not being perfectly round or being prone to flat spots. This is well known and documented and has been an issue since railways began. Metal fatigue is not something that can be forever treated, but rail grinding to reshape the head and monitoring of the condition of the rail will help prevent and spot early signs. But in the case of Hatfield, this simply wasn't done. On the busy main line with several trains passing at high speed daily, the rails developed a condition called rolling metal fatigue due to its high stress. The cracks that appeared on the railhead buried deep down into the rail's core. As the train ran over the rails, the fractures simply couldn't hold its weight any longer and shattered between coaches 2 and 3. The rails went flying, hitting the undersides of the coaches 1 and 2, but the other coaches were still travelling at over 100 miles an hour, and as each coach hit the damaged section and the derailed coaches, the damage got more and more catastrophic. The crash would be a turning point in Railtrack's history and would start the ball rolling to its subsequent collapse. Railtrack had known of the fatigue, but cutbacks and delays had meant that they were not properly addressed, nor anyone knew just how bad the condition of the entire network was. There were failures at every level, from planning to communication, meaning nothing got done, and there was 4 families mourning as a result. Network Rail inherited the mess of Railtrack in October 2001, with Railtrack being absorbed and renamed to Network Rail Infrastructure Limited. Although there had been an immediate scramble to get repairs done across the network, there was no real way of knowing just how badly the network was cracking under the pressure. Network Rail answered to no shareholders and reinvest any income it made back into its own network. But the problem still remained. How do you constantly monitor thousands of miles of track? Well, the answer is to use the very equipment that they were trying to protect. In September 2002, Network Rail purchased an ex-Virgin Class 43 power car and several carriages. The train was kitted out to the hilt with 14 sensors and a mobile lab. It had a boardroom and a carriage full of monitoring systems. Cameras take photos of the railhead every 3 millimeters, which can detect any imperfections or cracks. Lasers and even ultrasound are used to detect any movement, the track condition, even detecting any missing infrastructure such as clips which needed to be replaced. A large sensor on the roof checks the overhead wires as well, and at night the sensor envelops the train in an eerie blue glow. It can measure track gauge, alignment and cant. It can even help with ensuring the tilting trains have enough room to work properly. The beauty about this train? It can do all of this, all at once, at its top speed of 125 miles per hour. Any information or areas that need addressing are swiftly brought to the attention of the crew, who can easily send a maintenance team to deal with it. It was given a bright yellow livery, and people have affectionately come to call it the Flying Banana. The Flying Banana entered service in 2003 and had seen a series of upgrades during its life. The engines were overhauled in 2009 and pantographs fitted. But inside it is one of the most sophisticated trains in the world. In 2020, the train came under the care of Loram UK and the Railway Technical Centre. The network train covers over 115,000 miles per year and can scan the entire network every 4 weeks or so. Per shift, a crew can travel over 1,000 miles a day in an 18-hour run, and it is said that over 10 terabytes of data is collected every few hours, all around 400 miles. The monitoring trains don't just stop there. To help with branch lines, other smaller monitoring trains pace the network looking for those all-important faults. There are, to date, 64 vehicles in the fleet, making up 3 different trains dependent on the monitoring needs. The trains are run in between standard passenger runs and sometimes will take up paths designated for these runs. But due to its legacy, it is felt it is right to take this priority over inconvenienced passengers. To date, since Hatfield, there have been no major incidents involving rail fatigue, and the train is a very lucky favourite on the rails. There is a good chance you may see one. They work 7 days a week, even at night, where the blue glow from the sensors make it visible for miles around.